While we're in school, there's an infrastructure, not always ideal, but we have a system around us. Families, when their loved one leaves the school system, often face what feels like a cliff. They've had
Mhm.
this wonderful network, and if services or employment isn't readily available, it can be a terribly, terribly isolating transition.
Good morning, Krista, and welcome to Keys to the Community podcast.
Good morning, Phil. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So nice to have you. And what a beautiful day.
It is feeling a little like
Yeah,
spring in Holland, right?
yeah, finally. Hi.
Finally. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We're a resilient bunch here along the lakeshore, aren't we?
we are. We are. We keep our coats in the closet for a long time, ready to get them
Yes,
if we need them, right?
yes, we do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, who is Krista and how did we get to Benjamin's Hope?
Who am I? Well, that's a long podcast, Phil. So I would say, relevant to our conversation today, I am the mother of two boys. My youngest is Ben, and Ben is 30 now. And Ben is quite profoundly affected by autism. Yep.
I can't believe Ben is 30 years old
I
already.
know, isn't that shocking? I can't either.
Wow,
I can't
yeah.
believe how old his mother must be to have a child of 30, right? That's the harder part to imagine,
Yeah,
right?
right, right. I get that with
Yep.
a 30
Yep.
year old myself. I understand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep. So,
yeah.
and Ben's life, Ben, autism is a very broad spectrum. If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And Ben
Mhm.
lives on the more profoundly affected end of the spectrum. So, his life has really inspired what Ben's hope is today.
And tell me about Ben's Hope because I've had the opportunity to work at Ben's Hope, volunteer, I
Yeah.
should say, a few times. We've come out for a service or two, and
Yep. Yep.
back in the day, I used to when I was out driving around looking at real estate or helping
Mm-hmm.
people with that. I would stop in and see the llamas.
Ah,
Yeah,
yep.
that's way back when.
We've
And
still got them, although they are
oh, do
actually
you?
alpacas. A big
Oh,
difference
alpacas. I'm
between
sorry.
llamas
I'm
and
sorry. Yeah.
alpacas. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how did we get to Benjamin's Hope then?
Right. So, as I mentioned, Ben is quite profoundly affected by autism, which for him means that he doesn't verbally speak in a traditional way, needs pretty intensive supports. He's an awesome, fun fellow. But the inspiration for Ben's Hope really was centered around what does abundant life look like for Ben as an adult. As a child, he moved through our school system, of course, and had
Hmm.
remarkable supports through the school system, but that school bus stops coming. And
Hmm.
we were really challenged, even when he was a young fellow, to begin imagining what does, a full and abundant life look like for him as an adult? Where does belonging happen? And honestly, just the reality of awareness that we're not going to live forever. So his infrastructure for life can't be fully centered on what my husband and I are able to provide.
So, it was, well, first of all, how
Yeah.
long has Benjamin Hope uh, been around?
Well, I'll go back a little earlier in the
Okay.
story if you want. So,
Yeah,
when Ben
yeah.
was diagnosed at the age of 2, we were living in Columbus, Ohio, which is where I grew up. And within a couple years, we moved out to New Jersey because educational systems out there at that time were much more robust for children with autism. And when Ben was about 4 years old, so just a little guy, and he was doing a super intensive early intervention that the research really, suggested that we might come out of autism at a point. But Ben's 4 years old, and one day I had a picture in my mind of a farmstead community where adults with autism would live and work and have belonging. And it was as clear as a photograph. It's the only time it's happened in life for me.
Really?
Yep,
Wow.
yep. And I shared that idea with my father-in-law, and he said, "Well, Krista, you ought to do that." And I said, "Well, Ben's not going to need it, but somebody should do that."
Sure. Yes. Right.
Right?
Right.
And I think God's grace to me that I didn't understand at that point I had to do it. But years went by, and, Ben made progress, but it became apparent over the years that he would need intensive supports as an adult. And so when he was about 10 years old, through a host of events, we moved here to Holland, Michigan to develop a farmstead community for adults with autism. And that's been
Wow.
21 years ago, which is shocking
No
to me
way.
now.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
right.
I would not
Yeah.
have guessed that either.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And so 21 years ago,
Yeah.
you found some property
We
through
did.
lots of diligent work, found that property,
Well, we
cast the
did, and it
vision.
has a connection to a commercial realtor in town, actually.
Okay,
You
good.
want to hear? You may not know this story, Phil.
Sure. No, I don't.
Yeah. So Krista Pree, good friend of our family,
Yes. Yeah.
he and Barb were aware of what God had put on our heart to create this community. And one day he called and said, I want to drive you by a property.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
it
Wow.
is the 40 acres. We've since acquired 13 acres to our east, but it was the original property that Ben's Hope is located on. And he
Wow.
was close with the family that owned it, knew that they had a big heart for efforts like Ben's Hope. And that's how we came to be where we are today.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started with a raw piece of land,
We did.
and
Yep.
then what?
And then started connecting. We were brand new to Holland, so we didn't know anyone here. We weren't connected with the family networks that develop, when your child has special needs. So we really started connecting early on with business leaders in the community, nonprofit leaders, particularly people that were in public health care. That, services like Ben's Hope are typically funded through Medicaid dollars. And that was an area that we knew would be essential to our funding model. And so we really just started connecting, not necessarily with people or families that would need this for a loved one, but rather leaders in our community that would have a heart to develop something like this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you built your first home?
Yep. Back in
Okay.
2012, yeah, the original board, we formed our nonprofit status in 2007, and
Okay.
our original board had great wisdom in committing to being debt-free, knowing
Mhm.
that our primary revenue source would be, Medicaid, which is volatile.
Yes.
So that meant that there were several years of quiet development of the business model, of the key people we needed to be connected with, and fundraising. Sometimes we would hear in those early years, oh, it happened so fast. And I think, it wasn't fast.
Yeah, right,
It
right,
took
right,
years.
right.
But that we did find ourselves by 2012 ready to develop the infrastructure on the property and build our first two homes.
Okay.
Yep. And then over the years, you've been out here, Phil, we've
Yeah.
been able to build additional homes. We now have 8. We built a beautiful
Mm.
community center that looks
Yeah.
Herman Miller-ish,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
really the hub of a lot of our activities that serve the broader community. Build a barn, build activity centers, and just moved along as God provided funds to do so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there something like Benjamin's Hope anywhere else?
There are similar models, but nothing that I'm
Okay.
aware of that is everything that Ben's Hope is. And in
Hmm.
the early years, even before we moved here, we studied models around the country and gathered information about pieces and parts of different models that, resonated with the vision that we had. And I would say it's informed by models like Bittersweet Farms in Ohio and a few others. But I
Mm.
don't know any model that, one, is necessarily faith-based, and two, from inception was designed to invite the community to be part of
Mm.
everything we do.
Mhm.
I sometimes think of us as a wildly inclusive model.
Mm.
People think a lot about our residential services, which obviously is a key part of what we offer. But, on a week in the summer, we'll have 500 people out here over the course of the week participating in the Church of Ben's Hope or Club Connect or volunteering corporate groups that come out. So, I think what is impactful about Ben's Hope beyond the residential services is just helping our community have a very full and embracing posture toward people with disability.
Sure, sure. So, how does Ben's Hope differ from your traditional residential care?
Oh, I love that question. I think, well, I'll start by saying this. Autism, when Ben was diagnosed at the age of 2, the incidence of autism was 4 in 10,000. It is now, take a guess. What do you think it is now, Phil?
Oh, it's much less than that, but I wouldn't dare guess.
Yeah, it's 1 in
Or much more than
31.
that, however.
Much
1
more,
in
yeah.
31?
1 in 31.
My word, I would never guess
Right.
that. Wow.
Yes, right. So, and there's, varied schools of thought around that. Is that different and better diagnostic practice? The DSM has changed over the years. Regardless of where folks land on those questions, I think what is irrefutable is autism infinitely more prevalent in our families and in our community. And this is true across the country and in other countries, of course, as well. So, what that has inspired is innovative models, and not as many as we need. But getting to your question, I think what's different about Ben's Hope is from inception, we didn't look at this as simply a housing model. We looked at it as a much fuller mission. What gives life meaning for people? What for any of us, what gives us a sense of belonging and purpose, and how do we weave that into the model of what we offer here at Ben's Hope? And I think that is different than a lot of options that exist for families. For Ben, what that means, Ben's, as I mentioned, 30, so he's long done with school. And, so for him, what that means is here he has a very robust day, Monday through Friday. He starts his day with a real lively, we do a time of praise and worship in the morning, and then he's headed off into programming, and he might go to culinary and learn skills cooking and preparing meals. He might go to physical fitness or the aquatic center or renew therapeutic writing. It means that the folks that are participating in our program, whether they live here or come from elsewhere in the community, they're growing spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and in their physical well-being.
So you mentioned there are 500 plus people that are out there on a weekly basis.
Yep.
How many are residents? How many are coming, for day programming or whatever?
How does that break down? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do very high level breakdown. So we're serving 44 men and women residentially. And then our staff is about 160 right now. So I'll include them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We are providing, speaking of just of our residential programs, we're providing a pretty intensive level of support. So that means staff ratios that might be 1-2, 1-3, sometimes even 1-1. So a sizable staff. The Church of Ben's Hope is, you've been out, is the most lively, dynamic, wonderful church I've ever been part of. And on a Sunday night, we'll have 150, sometimes pushing 200 people that are coming from all over West Michigan.
Sure.
And on Thursday nights, we have Club Connect, which is a friendship ministry for people of all abilities, and we'll often have 70 or 80 folks out for that. And then in the summertime, we have as many as we can say yes to, lots of corporate groups, volunteer groups. We've got I think about 20 people coming from the Notre Dame Club this weekend to help us out.
Okay.
Yeah, so lots of different opportunities for the community to be engaged. And then I would just say organically, we've got a beautiful trail that loops around the campus and a playground and the alpacas. So there's a lot of folks that just stop out, for a walk or to bring their grandkids or all kinds of different things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are the biggest hurdles for local families when searching for high quality, long-term care, if you will, for their kids with developmental disabilities?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. There's a few hurdles, and I'll speak more toward the adult population. While we're in school, there's an infrastructure, not always ideal, but, we have a system around us. Families, when their loved one leaves the school system, often face what feels like a cliff. They've had this wonderful network, and if services or employment isn't readily available, it can be a terribly, terribly isolating transition. And the challenge that families face, and I'll speak more of families that have profoundly affected loved ones, is I know I'm not going to live forever. Maybe I'm aging myself and caregiving has become hard. There aren't enough, even average level residential options for adults with disability. And some of the reason for that is we rely on public funding and there's not enough funding. So there's just a scarcity of options. We'll have families, who yearn for this opportunity for their loved one, and openings very rarely occur in our residential program. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So if let's just say there is an opening,
Yep.
how many applicants per opening do you have?
Well, we've just navigated this because we opened 2 new homes in the last year. And the process, the way it works, is if a family is interested, they are working with their local community mental health system to receive approval for a potential placement here. And I would say for the 12 openings that existed in our new homes, there were well over 100 families.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I know. Yep. Yep.
So 2 questions related to that. It must be difficult to sort through and choose who are the 16 or 12, I'm sorry. And then does that also mean that Benjamin's Hope could be growing again?
I'll go to the first one. It's enormously difficult. And, often little understood is we don't actually have control over who gets approved and who doesn't get approved.
Okay.
And the approval determination exists at the Ottawa County Community Mental Health level or Allegan County or Kent County, whatever the sending county is. And it is a process based on a person's medical necessity, which it doesn't necessarily medical. We tend to think about people with physical disability. It does also include people with intellectual and developmental disability. So that approval, assessment, evaluation happens at the county level. And, that's not an easy process for families because there has to be a system of integrity, and there is in our county. We have wonderful county partners, but it does mean that sometimes they don't approve your loved one for what you want. So when I say there were 100 some interested families, many of them went through that process and may not have received an assessment that supported this level of care.
Okay.
But once that approval does happen, then it's a mutual evaluation of the individual and his family and us in terms of looking at, what the needs and dreams and hopes of that person are. Are they within our scope of care? Do we have the ability to really support their needs well, as far as we can understand? And then it's a process of really exploring an opening. Yeah.
So from an opening to moving in, how long a process is that?
Longer than
Typically.
I would like.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's longer for a few different reasons. One is, the process, county government, state government, any government isn't always a fast process. So that's timing that we don't have control over. And then on our end, it's staffing readiness. We've added about 30 new staff to be able to open these 2 new homes. So those 2 have to work together, which then, determines when a person would be able to move in.
Okay.
Can I transition to a happier topic that's related to this?
Absolutely, yes, please.
Okay, so knowing that we aren't going to be able to create hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of residential openings, has informed development of a lot of things that are meant to help families feel less isolated, like the Church of Ben's Hope. Or we have a prom coming up soon, and we have a concert series in the summer. So are those things the answer to sometimes the deepest need that families have? Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. but we really ached over a reality where, we're not going to be able to offer a residential opening to everyone. But sometimes when you dig down in a conversation with a family, what you hear is, we've lost our people, we're out of the school system. We as a family need a place. And that's something that we can say yes to many, 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 many families.
Okay. That
Yeah.
is positive. Thank you for
It
that.
is positive, yeah. Will
Yeah,
we build
yeah,
more homes? You asked that question.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know. I'm my poor team that works with me. I'm plagued with new ideas about every
Yeah,
5 minutes. So, do
sure.
we have dreams and aspirations? We do.
Yeah,
Will they make sense in light of our current funding realities, things that we're navigating? I don't know if they will, but right now we're
okay.
living into some expanded scale.
Okay. So
Yeah.
speaking of funding, you
Yes,
said most of it comes through government funding and so
it
on.
does.
What's the breakdown between private
Ah,
donations or donations?
yeah. Yep. And again, I'll speak in high generalities because this, year to year changes a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, the lion's share of our budget, which is about $7.5 million now, is residential program and specifically labor to support the men and women who live here. And
Okay.
so those are services that are meant to be funded through Medicaid dollars. And Medicaid funding, historically covers about 75% of the cost of care.
Okay.
So we're
Okay.
fundraising for the balance. And then there's lots of other things that we offer, like the Church of Ben's Hope, some learning opportunities that are not meant to be funded by Medicaid
Mm-hmm.
dollars. And those are fully, fully supported through charitable giving. So on an annual basis, if we're not in a capital campaign, for bricks and mortar, we need to
Mm-hmm.
raise now about $1.8 million.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So if someone listening to this
Mhm.
wanted to donate, how would they do that? Where would they find an opportunity to do that?
Oh, I can help with that question.
I'm sure.
Excuse me. So I would say a starting point is go to our website, benjaminshope.net. There's all kinds of information, including how to donate there. That's a good starting point. Or call the office and have a conversation with Sue, our director of development, or myself. Or just come on out. Before even saying, please, would you consider donating? I like to encourage people to come out and experience Ben's Hope.
Sure.
God has always provided what we need. And so we don't have a heavy-handed development strategy beyond just please come out and experience what happens here, meet some of the men and women who live here, and discern if God would call you to be part of this, or if there's a different way, volunteering or just being part of activities here. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Before we continue, I'd like to give a big shout out to our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible. Lighthouse Title, Independent Bank, Josh DeVries Mortgage Lender. Thank you for your support. Check out their info in the description below. Let's dive back in. What are a few maybe simple, practical ways that local businesses can participate, but
Yeah.
also make their businesses more accessible to your residents?
Oh, I love that question. So some local businesses participate. We have a number of businesses in town that have a philanthropic part of their, business model. And
Mm-hmm.
so we'll happily come speak, share what we're doing. That's one way. Other companies will put together a small group and come out and do a volunteer serve day with us.
Yeah.
I would say the value of those experiences are more about relationship building and understanding what happens here and why it's so vital than they are doing a specific project for us. Sometimes we'll have businesses say, do people still do that? If I can wear jeans to work on a Friday, I pay $1.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do creative things like that. A local restaurant just, hosted a night where a portion of their proceeds came to us. So there's all kinds of different creative ways to get involved. for local
Sure.
businesses.
Sure.
Regarding employment,
Mm-hmm.
we have a great need. Our community really does a remarkable job, but there's still, a need for employers that have a heart to employ adults with disability. And for, a number of our folks, we do have a few folks that are employed in the community. We love to partner with those businesses and help them understand what would that look like so that it's valuable for my business but successful for the individual.
Sure.
So that's another option as well.
So you used the word need, so I have to
Mm-hmm.
ask, what is Benjamin's Hope biggest need right now?
Right. Our biggest need is ongoing operating giving.
Okay.
I
Okay.
described that, the Medicaid funding, is stretched to meet the needs of the people. So,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's, we have a fair number of folks that give $100 a month and do that on an ongoing basis. That's
Mm-hmm.
incredibly helpful. $25 a month is
Yeah.
incredibly helpful. So right now, we're not in a capital campaign, so general giving is very important. And another place that giving really makes a difference is towards some of our learning opportunities. We offer a Monday through Friday program called Next that people from the broad community, folks who don't live here at Ben's Hope, participate in, and many of those people are on scholarship or partial scholarship. And we also have a program called Rapid Prompting Method, which is the most exciting development I've seen in the autism world in many years. It's helping
Mm-hmm.
people who are not traditionally verbal gain the motor skills to be able to spell and thus
Mm.
communicate. It's a long process, a learning process, and it doesn't turn everybody into a speller, but a number of our students are now independently spelling,
Mm.
and it's life-changing,
Yeah.
absolutely life-changing. So again, a number of those students are scholarshiped.
Yeah. So scholarship meaning that people have donated to Benjamin's Hope specific to a scholarship for these individuals.
Yeah. Yep,
Okay.
and I think it's in fact featured in our newsletter that I think is hitting mailboxes today. Just giving to learning at Ben's Hope, which allows our scholarship team to evaluate where those dollars are most needed.
So if someone wanted to sponsor a scholarship, how much is a scholarship?
So a scholarship for our next program,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Monday through Friday. It is an $80 a day program. So you could sponsor
Mm.
a person to participate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days a
Okay.
week. Yep.
Okay.
And our process is not scholarship or no scholarship. We are looking at, for those programs that are not funded through Medicaid, because you cannot supplement Medicaid legally, but for folks that are participating in programs and their family is supporting this, it's often just a partial scholarship to make it affordable.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
What can I do? What can people in our community do to support those with autism?
I would say this, our hope in our community is that we move the needle. And when I say that, I want you and your family to feel comfortable around people who have developmental disabilities. I want this to
Mm-hmm.
be a natural part of life. Neurodiversity is a part of life. So I would say toward the aim of, we already are one of the most disability welcoming communities in the country, and I've been all over the country, and I
I
know that
bet.
that is true. People come to study what happens here in Holland, Michigan, here, or Compassionate Heart, or any other number of good programs, because they look at our community and say, Holland, Zealand, they know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it is true. We have a beautiful heart, but I would say we still can grow in that. So what can you do? Come out and become comfortable among people who are different. As humans, we
Mm-hmm.
tend to kind of cluster with people that look like us, share the same thoughts that we do, think the same way, live the same way. I would
Yeah.
like to say, let's not be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
step out of our comfort. A super great starting point is come out to church at 6 o'clock on Sunday night, every Sunday night. It will, for folks that have never been in and around all abilities communities, it will feel different. And in a short while, it feels beautiful.
Sure.
So that's what I would
Sure.
say. Come out.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
And I need to do that again myself. Yes. So when you're not at, well, you're always at Benjamin's
I'm
Hope.
always at Benzo.
Yeah, yeah. But on the 5 minutes when you're not there, what does Krista like to do?
I like to cook. I like to read.
Okay.
Yeah, I like, when you are the founder of an organization, you make a choice, a joyful choice that this is going to pretty fully inhabit most of time and space. So I would be disingenuous to tell you that I have like great hobbies. I don't like golf. I don't,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have a great pleasure and privilege of being able to have a work life that resonates with the things that I care most about in life. So it's mostly Ben's Hope. I'll be out here with the Notre Dame folks on Saturday.
Awesome, awesome. So before we started to record this, I said to you, it's amazing what moms will do for their kids.
Yeah.
And you have your mom of the year, mom of the century there for helping Ben, and then the hundreds of other kids that have enjoyed this opportunity over the years. I congratulate you on that and your drive to get it done.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that. And I look at Ben's life, sometimes in the early days of a diagnosis as a parent, it can feel like more questions than answers of what's life going to look like, right? And I look at Ben's life today and I think, his life has been used to impact more people than most of us would ever dream of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What a joy that is.
Yeah. Where, I know you mentioned your website earlier, but if someone wanted to learn more about Benjamin's Hope, your website, where socials, I'm sure, all those kinds of things.
I think Facebook is a great place. I know I'm old, so I still use Facebook, but I think Facebook does, following us on Facebook will give you an idea of all the big stuff that's coming up. We've got a concert series on the lawn this summer. We started this a few years ago. It's a free, bring a picnic, bring your lawn chairs, come on out, and we get local bands, and it's delightful. It's really fun in the summer. I would say, come on out for those.
What days are those on, Krista?
So
I think every Thursday or something?
Third Thursday, May 28th is Friends of Friends. June 18th is Dune Grass. July 9th is Sons and Brothers. July 30th is the Khakis. And our last one is August 20th, and that's Sunday series. So those are delightful. And then every fall we have the Harvest Festival, which we have over 2,000 folks out here, which don't let that scare you away. It's super well organized, but that's coming up on September 19th from 3 to 6, and that's a free community welcoming event. Super fun. So
yeah. Awesome.
We need a lot of volunteers for that event. That would be a great place for people or companies to connect.
And I can call to do that or jump on the website and sign up for something?
Yep. There's an info at Ben's Hope, option on the website. You can just, plunk in there. I've got, 5 realtor friends that would love to come help at Harvest Festival, and we'll connect you. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Krista, I've enjoyed our time together. It was good to see you, and best wishes going forward with Ben's Hope and all the many things you have going on. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Gonna have to stop in again for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much.
You. Yeah. You have a great day. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Keys to the Community. Make sure you subscribe and stay connected to what's happening across West Michigan. And if real estate is on your mind, reach out. I'd love to help.